Hi everyone. I apologize in advance. I'm really under the weather. If my wife was with me in Yerushalayim, I'd be in the hotel now. It's really nice to be here. And I hope that you find it helpful. Those books are gifts to you from my wife and I. I decided I think it was about 3 years ago. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
I'm not really projecting well. If you can't, I just kind of go like that and I'll pick up the microphone.
I'll move up.
We'll move up.
I'll move up. Right, the whole front here.
So about 3 years ago, I decided that I'm never going to take an honorarium again for speaking in Eretz Yisrael, because I find it harder to go back each time. I'm going back tomorrow, and it's our way of participating in your Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael. So as long as Hashem gives me koach, whenever I come here, I'll try to come and speak to communities and help you raise your kids. And this book is just a little gift of ours for like I said, for doing what you're doing. So thank you. We're going to talk about child safety. We're going to talk about relationships. And what I really mean by relationships is really how can you get your kids to talk to you. It's easy when they're 6, then they want to hear you. They want you to hear them. Then they become teenagers. So we're going to talk about how to get your kids into the habit of speaking to you. I give you my word. I'm starting in advance with a disclaimer. I will not frighten you. How do you like that?
Like it.
You like it?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody take a deep breath. I don't know what you thought I was going to come with any horror stories. I listen to a lot of horror stories, but that's not what this is about. It's really not about any particular, situation. It's not even about the sex offender who's suing me for slander. I don't know if any of you saw this online.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm actually here this week. That's why I'm here this week. One of these days you'll invite me back for a little barbecue. This place is gorgeous. I got to come back during the day. But maybe we'll come for Shabbos if you invite us, of course. And then we'll have a barbecue up there and I'll tell you the story about this lawsuit. Oh my goodness. But it's really not about anything. It's really about how do predators think and why does that play to your advantage? See, the advantage of child safety, what it really is you have the script. You know what your enemy is thinking. I'll tell you, by the time you're out of here, you'll really get it, I hope. And it'll automatically make you so much more comfortable with speaking to your children and to understand why this stuff works. Most people have a hard time believing that child safety education works. Why? Make a kal v'chomer. I'm talking to my kids, right? Not your kids, of course, but they're my students, from yeshiva, so I can mess around with them all. So your kids listen to every word, but most people say, listen, my kid doesn't listen when I talk to them. Right? I say, clean up your room, they don't listen. Stop biting me, your sister, they don't listen. So now they're going to listen a year later, or 5, chas v'shalom, we hope never, but whenever they need this information, they're going to retrieve the information, and they never listen to a thing I say anyway. And how am I going to teach this little kid to protect himself against the big guy? So people get kind of bugged out, and there's almost like a yish that sets in that you say, no, I can't do this. There's nothing I can do. I'll daven, But once you think, so I'm going to spend a few minutes, 3-4 minutes, giving you an insight into how predators work. And the solution, the child safety education, is almost crystal clear once you get it. Now, here's the gig. Imagine if I was a scammer and I was trying to make some quick money by posing as a real estate developer. Okay, that's the gig. So I'm a thief and I have this beautiful brochure. It's got beautifully made, nice marketing materials. And it talks about a place that's even higher up than the Vei Daniel. You got to come here during the day. Okay, it's gorgeous. It's got this beautiful view, and it's beautiful. And the houses are so cheap because you're going to be the one right at the beginning to get in. If you're 50,000 shekel deposit, you can get 50% off the price because you're the first 3 families. That's the speech. Okay? You buying? Okay. Now listen. So here's the gig. So I'm a thief, and I'm trying to steal money. Inside this brochure, there's a contract. And if the person agrees to do this, I'm going to give them the contract, and they're going to sign it and hand me a check for 50,000 shekel, and then I run away as far as I can. Now, here's the problem. Am I comfortable giving a contract to somebody? If I meet a potential person that I want to fleece for the first time, will I bring these papers that can get me 20 years in jail to that first meeting, or would I rather find out more about him? Okay? I'm not going to, it's very unlikely, unless my ADD meds wore off and I do something impulsive, it really doesn't make sense for me to come up with this right away. The first time I'm going to bring nothing, maybe just a picture of the development. Why? Because I don't know if the people I'm talking to have a brother who's a district attorney or a lawyer or a real estate developer. I don't know who I'm talking to. So I'm going to look for just the right people to target, and I'm going to really think about this. Who are my best clients? Who would be my best target audience, folks?
Senior citizens.
Senior citizens, preferably a widow or a widower, right? A senior citizen.
Don't have sons or daughters and a real estate.
And don't have sons and daughters or real estate attorneys, right? So I'm going to look for a senior citizen, preferably
Immigrants.
immigrants, very good, because an immigrant
Doesn't have a family.
doesn't have a family network, okay? And I'm going to look for somebody who's not financially astute. So I have a checklist in my head, and it's almost like I knock it off. Another great one on the other side of it, of a senior citizen. Most people in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you've made mortgage payments, you know a lot about stuff. So you're not good anymore. Once you hit 25, 30, forget it, used to me. But how about if a couple right after their wedding? Now there is a client. That is somebody I can mess around with. Many of them, some do, some of their parents taught them about money and had accounts for them since they're 16 and all that. And some of them yeah, whatever, a check is something you pull off, that's it. So another target population would be a young couple with lots of wedding money and not financially astute. And what I'm going to do is at that first meeting, again, I don't bring the papers, I just talk about it. And I'm going to go through my mental checklist. Just like, the quarterback gets back in American football, the receivers run out, he has a progression in his head of who's getting the pass first. That's how they work. So I'm going to meet with them and I'm going to ask them questions to find out. So what it would look like if I'm talking to a young couple or an elderly person. So, how do you like it here in Neve Daniel? Is it nice? I imagine, I heard you might be looking to be a pioneer. Do you have family here? Do you have... And if the couple or the elderly person says something like, oh, I have such wonderful children, they call every single day. That meeting, we're not getting to a second meeting. I run away right then. And if they say, oh, my late husband reviewed everything with me for the last 40 years, you're out of there. So it's family connection, it's isolation versus connection. It's gullibility versus street smarts. It's lack of knowledge versus knowledge. That's basically those questions. And I try to find that out during the first meeting. I can weed out a great number of people at the beginning. And some people are they look prospects. I'm still not going to bring in that paper. I'm going to want to find out some more. We'll have another 2 or 3 meetings till I bring it. That's exactly how predators work. They don't know who has a mom that's a helicopter mom. I say that in the nicest way. You ever heard the term helicopter mom? They hover around. I say it in the nicest way. They don't have parents who are engaged and know the kid. They don't know. So they go through this process called grooming. Once you understand how it works, you have to teach your children not to be gullible, to know about their own personal space, not to be good clients for this guy, and be in touch with you all the time. Believe me, the predators are evil and brilliant enough to figure this out. Less than 5% of abuse is, one time like that. It's almost always this process, that sometimes they do it for weeks, sometimes they do it for months, because they're afraid. So that's why it's not about strength. That's why a little kid can defend himself against a bigger adult, because the defense is knowledge. So if somebody puts their hand on a child and the kid goes like this, it's over, game over. Game, set, match. It's over. the predator goes away. Again, there are exceptions to the rule, but that's usually what happens. So the 4 safety rules, and I'm going to walk you through the book later. The 4 safety messages are: no secrets from parents. Those training your children that no one is ever allowed to keep a secret, that you're not allowed to keep a secret from them. Your body belongs to you. The notion of personal ownership of space. Good touching, bad touching. Some touching's okay, some touching's not okay. And the last one is really the trickiest, so I'm going to do that last, and I'm going to spend more time on it. It's no one has the right to make you feel uncomfortable, and what that really does is you're telling children to trust their instincts. It's much more tricky to teach and to understand, so we'll spend more time on it. Okay, so those are basically the rules. Because the grooming process is one where the space is gradually encroached upon, you want your kid to get out early in the game, to be able to, if they start feeling a little bit uncomfortable, you want your child to be able to walk away and not wait until it's almost too late, because then it's much harder to disengage. So you're training them to get out earlier in the process. Okay, so let's go through them. Again, no secrets from parents, really simple. Nobody. I'm a school principal, educator, an uncle, a friend, a person in the neighborhood, a rabbi, yoetzet, whatever. Nobody tells your kids not to talk to you. It's impossible. Nothing, that never happens. It's a huge red flag, and it's something that's very easy for children to understand. I'll tell you an adorable Darchei Noam story. Remember Mrs. Hausman? You didn't have it, did you? At the beginning of the yeshiva, about almost 20 years ago, we had a wonderful 2nd grade teacher named Mrs. Hausman. And I heard from the children, I have my ear pretty close to the ground. So I heard from the kids that there were 2 people molesting kids in Muncie. I didn't know who they were, or I would have gone to the police, which we did once we found them, once we found out who it was. But we heard chatter, as they say. We heard a lot of talk that somebody's being inappropriate with kids in the park. Excuse me. So what I did is, I brought in a parent, Dr. Yitzi Schechter, and I asked them I didn't feel qualified at the time to do a class like this, so I brought some, that's also a very important thing, to know what you don't know. And I brought him in, and I asked him to do a class. And he spoke to the parents, and one of the things he mentioned was this thing about no secrets from parents. I got up, I asked Dr. Yitzi if I could say a few words. I said, can I just add something to this? I said, it doesn't say this in the literature, you won't see this in studies, but I'm a pragmatic guy. So tell your kids that if somebody ever tells you that if any of these rules, if somebody breaks one of these rules, and you tell them, you'll give them a big prize for it. Okay, so if somebody tells them to keep a secret from you, and they tell you, you will reward them for it. All right. This was in June. This was right before the summer. I wanted the parents to have this education before camp. The next Shavuos, Mrs. Hausman, our 2nd grade teacher, our excellent 2nd grade teacher, made a Shavuos project with the kids. And the project was that they took paper and they made paper flowers, and they glued it together somehow. It dried overnight. Finish the story.
She said, don't tell your parents.
And she said, on the way out, it dried overnight, and we're going to paint it the next day. And she told the kids on the way out, shh, this is a big secret, don't tell your mom. That bus dismissed at 4:15. I promise you, my phone was ringing off the hook, starting at 4:17. I could have told you the route. It was hysterical. It was really funny. Every minute and a half, like another parent would call. At the end, I just picked up the thing. All right, here we go. And the fascinating thing was, almost every parent, they knew she didn't do anything wrong. They understood right away. They were amazed that the kids listened. And they were amazed that they remembered. They forgot about it. But the kids want a prize. So, we don't raise dummies in Muncie. What happened was the kids really happened. The kids came home and they said, Mom, Mara, tell me he was here. So this stuff works. When they do training for fire safety or other things like this, you wonder, does it really work? Last Thursday, I was in Lamaray in the city. I was having lunch with someone, with a friend, and somebody was choking on the food. I had never seen him. I'm 57 years old. I never saw anything like it in my life. Never. How many times did you read this Heimlich thing, right? You read it, you look at it, take your finger, make you never did it. So it was almost natural to me. So this guy, I said I wouldn't scare you. I won't scare you about child abuse. This was, I'm telling you, his eyes literally were, it was horrible. He tore his shirt open like he was dying in front of us. It was unbelievable. So 2 guys, till the fire guys came, me and myself and the cook, we picked up this guy and we were doing the Heimlich, so we kept him alive till they came, and whatever, it took him an hour to get up. But what I'm saying was, like, I didn't even think about it. I just knew what to do, and I never did it. I never trained, I never practiced. When you read stuff, and you look at it and you say, I might need this one day, let me take a look. And then, you look at it when you come in a restaurant every 50th time, so sooner or later it sticks. If you go out enough, Okay, so get them the message and just include this as part of their hard drive, as what goes and what doesn't go. Okay, personal space, you're talking about training your children to understand that their private space belongs to them. Kids understand private space at a very young age. And if you have a 3-year-old at home and you just want to inflict some pain on yourself, take away some stuff from him or her, right? Take away a pacifier or a blankie or anything. They know stuff belongs to them. They don't know that they belong to them. So that's really what you're telling them, is that you have a right to your space. And it's really not in the context of abuse. The research shows that the most effective way to do this, to have this conversation, is about stuff in their drawers. Teach children to respect each other's space. Everything is the same about them. One has no door at home. When they go to the room, if they tell me I can dress, or the doors, and the other one doesn't. They feel the same. I think 3 or 4 times more likely to offend themselves, because it becomes just, again, part of their notion. It's really about norms. You want the kids to know what type of behavior is outside of the norms of what people shouldn't come over, you'll excuse me, and touch you on your backside. It's not supposed to happen. And when it happens, you're told that this is not a normal thing. Look at them, say something, speak up to an adult. That's really what this is about. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine if you invited me to your house for Shabbat, or that barbecue we're having. Just imagine if I walked over to your table. You have kids ranging in age from 2 to 10, okay? I walk over, I roll up my sleeve, and I stick my hand in, the salad thing. Or I take my shoes and socks off and put them on the table, put my feet on the table. How old does a kid have to be to know something's really wrong? Not very old. How would start giggling? Think about it. How old would a kid be to start giggling? 3, 4, 2.5? They would know right away. I took off my shoes. So that's supposed to be weird to them. That's the idea. For somebody to come and take something of mine, and again, you reinforce this in 100 ways. I started something in Dar Chenom, when I started, like 14 years ago, I started writing about this. I started something, when children would mix it up in the playground, instead of talking to them about fighting, I used to, from across the playground, I would say, you're in somebody's space. Same message, but I wanted to reinforce the notion. And I used to go like this. That meant, you're in somebody's box, get out of it. And this became a sign for, somebody's personal space. Again, there's so many ways that you can reinforce this, all of them healthy and all of them helpful. Third thing is good touching, bad touching. Some touching is okay, some touching is not okay. Nice way to say it, spot covered by a bathing suit, let's say. Nobody should touch you on a spot covered by a bathing suit. It's probably a good way to go, but really whatever works for you.
Except bathing suits for girls and whatever today.
I'm sorry?
Almost all your buttons.
And nobody should be touching girls anywhere
Yeah,
with their body.
that's right. Exactly. So, you, whatever works for you, any way that message gets across. With young children, it's important to give them very clear exceptions to the rule. Okay, so you have a young child, that rule doesn't stand because they need to be bathed and clothed and they soil themselves. So there are people in their life that, are, are going to have to touch them in private places. So you tell them, no one's allowed to touch you in a private space except for Abba and Ima. If we're away, your babysitter or Sabta, if you're going there, at a doctor when we're in the room, a doctor's office for a visit, like really tight. Don't say things like, nobody can touch you in a private space but people in our family. Or people, or people we know well. Because that leaves you open to the unspeakable, where we know that most abuse takes place by people very close to the kids. So that's, it's important as you're giving this message to work that in. I also think it's very important, I you don't see this in the literature, but I found it extremely important to make a point of explaining that these rules apply to everybody. Everyone. When we find, high-profile rabbis or elected officials who take advantage of men or women, or boys or girls, whatever, you usually see that there was a pattern that this person was having inappropriate lack of boundaries way before this happened. They're like, people kind of got used to it. Oh, he deals with couples. People come to him, 3 in the morning. Or, you just get used to, oh, he's the type of guy, he's a Rabbi, he loves the guys, he slaps them on the back, But the rules apply to everybody, no exceptions. I always say, if you wouldn't let the custodian, I have the same rules as the custodian. You wouldn't let the custodian take your kid in the car alone? Don't let me do it. You wouldn't let the custodian, excuse me, have time alone with the child. The rules have to be across the board. There's anybody familiar with the term the halo effect? Anybody? The halo effect? Anybody want to teach for me so I can not talk for a minute? Anybody? Okay, I'll tell you. Did you know? Did you nod? You want to tell them? No. So the halo effect means that once you make a prejudgment about someone, you're far more likely to interpret events according to that initial reaction that you had. So if I walked in here and you said, if you listen to the first 10 minutes of my talk and you say, oh, Horowitz gets it, or Horowitz is a loser, whatever, in which case I could run against Donald Trump. No. So if you make a judgment about me that I get it, and I say something that's kind of on the borderline, especially if I've been with you for a few years, you'll say, yeah, probably, Here's another example. This really struck me. You have a Baal Kriya in the shul, guy who reads the Torah, never made a mistake in 30 years. Never. It's like putting money in a machine. Just got, boom, does the whole parsha. Guy makes a bad mistake. How many men in the shul correct him? 0. Nobody is going to get up there and take a chance. He's going to think, oh, I read this wrong. I made a mistake, or maybe his grandfather has a different minhag, or maybe Art Scroll made this print for people from Russia who have different minhag. You're not getting up there in shul. You are not getting up there and saying, hey, whoa, you made a mistake. This guy's got 30 years of perfection. So these are the types of judgment. This is when we get into trouble. We get into trouble when we make these judgments, and then we see things that don't make sense and that are inappropriate. We say, well, it's so-and-so. He's, I was very involved with a case of Nehemiah Weberman, who was an absolute monster. He went on trial in 2012 for molesting a Hasidic girl from Williamsburg. And really one of the tougher calls I made in my life. I decided to support the girl. And they made a big fundraiser for him in Williamsburg, and it really ticked me off. And I decided 2 weeks after that I went public. And I had spoken to 4 other victims. I spoke to many therapists. This guy was a monster. So I decided to really, all in, I just put 30 years of my reputation on the line. My best friends thought I lost my mind. And some of my family members like, Yakov, what are you, crazy? You're trusting the 17-year-old girl who's got problems and blah, 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 over him. Anyway, he was convicted on all 59 counts. He got a 103-year prison sentence. Thank God he's in a place where he can't harm children. But this guy was in a Hasidic community, was giving therapy, he's not even licensed, to single girls in a door in his office that had 3 locks on it. This all came out during the trial. His office door had 3 locks on it, like not the way it is in all the professional environments where somebody walks in and out, or right? 3 locks on the door. There was a bed in the freaking office. There was a bed there in the next room. It was like a converted apartment. And the sessions, many of them were 4 hours. 4 hours is a relationship. And everybody wondered during the trial, how the heck did this guy get away with it? In the Hasidic circles, if a guy, professional, saw a girl for 45 minutes, they would probably say, right? He groomed everybody. This grooming process, I saw a fascinating write-up. It's called institutional grooming. I found it absolutely fascinating. Institutional grooming means that predators not only groom the kids, they groom their parents and the community. It means they do things in certain ways that they have like Teflon on them and nothing sticks to them. So people just got used to seeing Weberman in the street. He had a reputation for dealing with kids. I have a picture. You see, he took a girl to an ice cream parlor in Williamsburg. You see him just standing with her in an empty store at 12 o'clock at night. Imagine anybody else would do it. You'd throw him out of town. So he groomed everybody, and everybody got to the point where they believed him over her. So the rules are across the board. No halo effect stuff. No halo effect. You don't prejudge anybody by what you think they are or who they could be. First of all, you never know. Second of all, the respected person may have, God forbid, been abused as a child. They never got help. They didn't sort it through in their own head. A few of the high-profile cases that I was involved in really fit that bill. And so you don't know what's going on behind the curtain. So everybody gets the same rules. And I think for shuls and schools, it's important to have protocols in place of what people do and what they don't do. And this all changed. And we're all trying to adjust to this new reality. And it's very clumsy. I used to hug my students. I'm a very emotive person. One funny story. Remember the Dachinon Pushka box? Yeah, wait. You were good at the dinner. You used to bring sushi to the dinner meetings. That's all. That I remember. So this guy should be brought sushi. So true story. One of my trustees came to me about 4 years into the yeshiva, and he said, "Listen, Yankee, we need a pushka box. The yeshiva needs a charity box." So I said, "What are you gonna? We have 60 students. We're gonna make $300. Like what's it? No, we have to know people. We're on the charity list. Grandparent, whatever. I'll pay for the whole thing." The guy says, "How are you gonna argue with that?" So he sent a non-Jewish photographer. The guy followed me around all day, and he took a bunch of pictures. And then remember pictures, printed. So he came to my office a few days later. He spread them all out on my desk. Like a collage. He spread them out in a semicircle of the way he wanted to set it out. And the biggest one smack in the middle was me hugging a kid. Now, it wasn't an inappropriate, frontal hug like that. I remember the kid said something. It was my oldest class. He said something funny. It was out in the hallway. It wasn't in a private spot. I just put my arm around him, whatever. I said, great line. Moved on, forgot about it. So in the Dachinon Pushka box, there's a picture of Yankee Horowitz, Shlita, hugging this kid. Fast forward, 10 years later, it's a true story. I get a phone call from a principal colleague of mine who's in a Midwestern yeshiva. And he calls me up, he says, "Yankee, I really don't know what to do. We have a Rabbi who's hugging the kids. Parents are starting to get nervous. It's a different environment than it was. What do you think about it?" True story. So I'm sitting at my desk, phone in my hand, and I said, "You better tell him to stop it. Hugging kids is absolutely, it's not happening anymore, and, it's just not right. We have boundaries and guidelines." And as I'm talking to him, my Ritalin's wearing off, and I start looking around the desk, and I see a pushka box on my desk. I said, "Oh my God." I slammed the phone down on him. I ran down to the lunchroom. I said, "Boys, the yeshiva needs money very badly. We're having an ice cream party tomorrow. Whoever brings in a pushka box gets 2 ice cream cones. And if you bring in 2 pushka boxes, you get 40 ice cream cones. You can eat with your hands. You can eat with your hands for a week." I don't know. I promise you, I don't even remember what I said, but I said stuff. It cost me a lot of money to keep out the promises. I said, "And I don't want you going home and breaking open the pushka box." But no. That you get nothing for that. You have to bring in the pushka box. And even if there's a pushka box that's broken and in the garbage, you get money for bringing it in. You still get ice cream, whatever. I got rid of every single pushka box and make like a big bonfire. So stuff changes, and you don't adjust at your own peril. So we need to, if you were going to stop this stuff, knowing what we know, you need to think differently about how you supervise your children, how about guests coming over to the house. You know, you have an open house and you're inviting a couple of boys, and you have a 15-year-old girl, and your son brings a couple of friends. Really give it some thought. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm saying really, really think about it. It's these types of totally different thinking that we need to do. My wife and I always tell them, I mean, we took in, there was a kid in Louisiana who father not Jewish, his mother was Jewish, this kid was in public school. He decided to get connected to his Jewish roots right after his bar mitzvah. He went to the Reform rabbi, and he started asking too many questions. He says, no, you need the Orthodox rabbi. That's true. It's a true story. So he went to the Orthodox rabbi, and bottom line, 6 months later, we were wearing a Becca shirt in Louisiana. Now, what do you do with this kid? He doesn't know how to learn. He's wearing Hasidic Levush. Where are you putting him? So somebody said, oh, we have to look for somebody in Muncie who has Hasidic background, who gets Hasidim, who's hip and understands and can talk to the kids. Horowitz, got it. So I get a call from two Rabbanim. I should let the guy know. This guy and his father stayed in my house for 3 months. My kids were babies. And I look back and I say, oh my God, what were we thinking? God forbid, this guy could have been an axe murderer. I had no idea who he was. What was I thinking? I wasn't. Because we didn't think then, but now we know, and you got to start thinking. That's really the message. I'll take some questions. Go.
How should we look at that here? What you're saying when we're living someplace where our supervision of our kids is on a totally different level than what we would have expected in America. The kids go out, and they're out for the day. And we're not talking like, oh, my kid got a ride home with his teacher. We're talking, my kid stood at the Trimpiata and went like this and got in the car with a total stranger.
So it's something you need to think about. I can't give you solutions. I don't know your life well enough. Shimmy has me for a month. I'll be able to tell you. No, but it's a decision that you have to make as parents. What I'm encouraging you to do is to think about stuff.
It's not that they should get in the car.
I didn't say that.
They should have the sensory awareness of knowing where they're crossing the line.
Maybe they should only go in groups. They should text you when they get in. I don't know.
Back seat.
You figure it
What was in the
out.
back seat?
No, but actually with another trapeze.
So, right.
It's not just that. Say you tell your kid not to take a tramp, but how many people here have yeshiva bakram or whatever, staying at them and just whatever he said all the
That's what I
time?
was thinking.
Folks,
my house.
folks, I'll tell you what. Take my phone calls for a month, and then you make your own decisions. Okay, I'm saving you the aggravation. There are too many girls who've been victimized by brothers of their siblings, of the brothers, friends of their brothers. So maybe you just need to lock the doors at night. Tell the girls to lock the doors from the inside. I don't know. You got to think about it. That's my only point. My point is that if you're sitting there with your pushka box and you're still hugging your kids the way, if I'm still hugging my kids as a principal, I'm going to get into trouble. So you need to think differently. And we know what we know. It's just, so the truth of the matter is that if you train your children well, it helps. It makes a very big difference. If they're used to talking to you about stuff and you have the type of relationship where they share stuff with you, you're not done, but you're in much better shape. So this is the conversations you have. Yes?
Real situation. My kids were in a gun,
Great.
run by a Chabad couple. They were totally happy going, totally happy coming home. Next thing I hear, the male side of the couple is abusing the kids. I don't know what to think because my kids are so happy going.
How long ago did this happen?
Well,
A while ago, I assume. Jenny Man?
he's 12 now. He was 3 then. But
Look, I don't think there should be a play group where there was a question about a child going to a play group, and they found out that the husband
Well, they
of
were
the
never sure. They
head
never-
of the play group, there was suspicion that the husband of the head of the play group was molesting the children. Honestly, you shouldn't send your kids into a situation where guys shouldn't have access to an area. So I'm saying,
even
like,
boys,
what?
he was a boy.
guys?
Who was a boy?
You don't know. I was so happy going, I'm in. Shouldn't there have some sign
There are signs. There are signs. The question is, you notice online, thank you so much, and look for signs of, how you know children are abused. Usually they have mood swings, they tank in school and social stuff, they're frightened where they never were before. There are signs that you can look at, but not all children exhibit the signs, so
Because the girls were exhibiting nightmares and the boys weren't.
that's a question for a mental health professional. You gotta sit down
I
and talk to them
understand,
about
I'm
it.
just like in general.
I'm not,
like-
I don't know enough about it, it's certainly not the venue here. What I'm saying is that you as a parent, when 20 years ago, when my children were young, our youngest is getting married next month. So, thank you, you look so young, come on, somebody please. When our kids were going to gun, if we would see like a man around the room, we'd say, oh, it's so nice, he comes blow shofar for the kids, right? It's so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And now I say, see you later, pal, I'm out of here. Oh. Okay, is this Ben? Hello? Yeah, just leave
We
it.
hear you,
Yeah, I
we
think
hear
it's
you.
fine. Thank you for trying. So I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. You need, the line to catch a thief, you gotta think like a thief. You gotta think like a thief. That's basically what the Manal Shlit is telling you. To look at situations that you've looked at before and said, oh, it's so nice. And say, what's the downside? What's the risk? Okay? Yes?
I just want to say, my daughter was on Kita 5, like gun 5 here. At the end of the year, they did a very good play. I don't know who put it on. Like, I think it came from the Midrash Chinuch or whatever, called Hakuf Shali.
Oh.
And they had all different scenarios with a doctor,
Right.
with an auntie or an uncle, like at a 5-year-old level. And that started a lot of talk now how with a 5-year-old girl.
That's great.
About how important
That's
it is.
brilliant. That's great.
I think parents should be encouraged to speak to their children
Right.
about their book.
Well, that's part of it, right? That's part
I'm
of
saying
it.
not only as a reaction, it should be even
Right.
before the reaction.
And one of the
I know in religious circles sometimes it's very like pushed to the side. And not
One of the risk factors are children who can't identify parts of their bodies. I always tell parents, if you don't want to teach your children about their bodies because you don't want to give them any ideas, there are plenty of predators you can outsource that to. They'll be glad to teach them. It's just part of life that children are comfortable. A woman wrote a book. By the way, if you want to, we'll do the grooming process in a minute. I'm going to have to move on to the last thing in a moment. Anybody else? Question, the last one? Go, last one.
Are you saying that hugging family friends and family in a public space should not be allowed?
No, I didn't say that.
No?
I'm an educator
No,
with
but
my
like an
students.
educator, so students in the hallway are a problem, but in the
I'm just
living
telling
room
you,
with the
I'm just
uncle
telling you,
and
in
the
today's
grandpa?
environment, it depends. It depends. It depends. There are many variables. I'm telling you in America right now, if a principal or a Rabbi is hugging the students, parents are going to go ding, ding, ding. I don't know what the culture is here. I'm just saying, by and large, I don't mean this in a bad way, but by and large, you guys are about 4 or 5 years behind the States in this whole parsha. I mean it, I really mean it.
20 years.
What? 20 years? All right, whatever. I'm being charitable. I want to tell you, what? It's not 20 years, no. I'll tell you some great news. I just posted it on my Facebook page today. For the first time, I've been coming here working on child safety for the last couple of years. We published our safety book in Hebrew, and we did a Datilim. We're doing a Datilum version that's going to print soon, hopefully, very soon. I've been coming here for a few years, and it's been extraordinarily frustrating because of, the lack of awareness or the lack of being able to write things in certain papers or whatever. For the first time, I really got optimistic today because I wrote on my thing that things are starting to tip. You won't see it yet. It'll take another couple of months, but it's going to tip like the tipping point, and then nothing's going to be the same again. You'll see. Because in America, that's exactly what I felt like I did in America a few months before it tipped. Like in America, I got up and wrote about abuse victims. They really go, "What, are you crazy? There's 2 kids getting victimized and making such a fuss. What are you doing?" Even, I'm telling you, friends of mine, people who should have been more progressive and aware, it's tipping here. I feel it. You do workshops like this. I was in 5 communities in these 4 days. I listen to your questions. I listen to you talking as you go out to the car, and I sense that parents are really getting it. And I did 2 speeches in very Haredi communities. The parents get it, The parents are ticked off that there's no registry here. There's no sex offender registry here. Stuff's gonna change here, because you guys are gonna riot if it does. And I'm telling you, I really feel optimistic that you're in for a big culture change in terms of standing up for victims and supporting children. I really have a good feeling. In a way that I didn't even recently. I actually I met today with one of the ministers. I've been working on going to a number of ministers to try to work on, just so you know, if any of you know people who know people in the government, I'll repeat the offer that I made today, which I made a year and a half ago to a different minister. I offered to write, this is our safety book. So this is the Dati Lumi version of the book you have in your hand. If you want to play a game, figure out how we made changes, like 200 changes here. Yeah, pass it around, sure. I offered the government, standing offer today, I offered the government to write over that I will grant the State of Israel the right to all of our Ivrit safety books. I'll give it away for free as a gift to the Jewish people, provided that they print the book for every family, which I said would cost them about $2 million, which is a rounding error on a budget. I said, I offered, standing offer, I'll do a secular version, and I said I would do a version for the Arabs, that they should work with their children, so everybody should have a book without exception. I offer stands right now. Somebody from the government comes. So far, I'm very frustrated that nobody took me up on it. They're entitled. But I'm just saying, if you know people who know people to offer stands at any time, and I'm telling you, I told somebody today, his eyebrows jumped. I said, I guarantee you that the suicide bombers by the Arabs, more than 90% of them were molested. I said, I guarantee you, I bet my last dollar on it.
You have some evidence.
I'm sorry? You got MKs? Bug them. Go for it. I'll come back for the barbecue. I'm telling you, I'm making a standing offer. The offer stands.
On a small scale,
Yes.
there's I think I have an American also, it's called Sifriyat Pajama, the pajama library.
Right,
And
I
that
spoke to
kids
them.
get the books
I
and
spoke to Diane. Whatever, I can't go into it now. But they didn't want to take it for, I think, whatever, a reason. There was a reason they didn't want to take it. I'm very friendly with the head. But what I'm telling you is, folks, hang in there. You'll see, I believe. I might be wrong. I've been wrong many times before. But I believe that things are going to tip in a dramatic way in the next, I don't know how long it'll be, month, 2 months, 5 months, I don't know. The things are going to tip very quickly, and well, you know what's going to break loose. And I hope that I told one of the elected officials, my last trip here, I said, people are going to come with axes. I'm telling you right now. I said, they'll come after you with sticks, and you better get out of it. You better get ahead of this issue, or you're going to get run out of town. Whatever. Anyway, so that's the good news. Let me get on to the last thing. Last question. I want to get on to the last topic.
You brought the example of kids should be used to look at, if somebody touches them, it's like sticking your hand into the salad on the table.
Right.
But it's not sticking your hand into the salad on the table is something that kids might do, but adults will definitely not do.
Right.
Touching is something that the kids see that teenagers or adults on the street or in the family, something that adults do. They do touch each other. And it's something they know that's something that when they get older, it's something they will do.
So it depends what you call touching. Adults shouldn't be touching each other in private spaces. That's what you're telling me. I'm not telling them don't touch each other. I'm saying for clergy people or people in schools, there's a different set of boundaries. It's perfectly normal for teenagers in a hockey game to hug each other. I'm saying you're not telling them don't touch each other. Don't touch each other in a way that makes you uncomfortable. That's the last thing. But again, you're not saying physical contact. I gave an example just to put some humor in, to get you to laugh once or twice so you don't get worked up about the subject. But it's not about making these draconian, rules with the kids. It's just normal rules. And you tell it to them in a way that's normal. Parents say all the time, I tell my kids they're going to get bugged out. If you're bugged out, they'll be bugged out. When you tell them not to touch something from the stove, they don't get freaked out, right? Because you're not freaked out. Think about it. You know about abuse. They don't. You know about abuse, and you know what it means. So when you tell them nobody's supposed to touch a private spot, you say, nobody's supposed to touch a private spot there. They get nervous. They don't remember what you said because you bugged them out. They don't know. They just know that it's a rule, like other rules. And they'll follow it if you tell it to them, if you frighten them. There's a disconnect between what parents think. There's an adorable story. This kid comes home this, whatever, 6, 7-year-old kid comes home from school, and he said, "Mommy, where did I come from?" And she says, "Oh, well, I'm only asking you because Jimmy comes from Boston." Right? The kid didn't mean, "Where do I come from?" He meant, "Where city did we come from?" So the parent thought all of this, and she got bogged down. I'm sorry? So don't get bogged down. Do you want to just pass that around? Because I only have one of them. I gave a few to the machers. So just be relaxed when you have the conversation. They will follow your lead. They're going to see this parsha, this subject, through your eyes. And if you tell it it's important, but no big deal, then that's the way they get it. Let's talk about feeling uncomfortable and grooming. If you want to read anything, if you'd like to do some reading, I found the best piece, my number one recommendation for reading about the grooming process. I could give you other books that'll really freak you out. So I'll give you a nice one that's not overly done, it's not overly frightening. It's a piece by Malcolm Gladwell, the guy who wrote Tipping Point and Blink and Outlier and all of that, David and Goliath. So he wrote an article called In Plain Sight. I would encourage every one of you to read it. You can look it up now, read it now, it's fine. I was an 8th grade Rabbi, I'm used to having people do stuff, in plain, I'm sorry to his faces, it's very hard for me to swallow. So, it's called In Plain Sight by Malcolm Gladwell. I believe it was a New Yorker magazine. It's a 5,500 word piece, which is a little more like a mini book. And he wrote it, anybody finding it? He wrote it about the Sandusky case. And he was questioning, how did this guy in Penn State, did this coach get away with molesting kids for 20 years? And he talks about how Sandusky groomed the folks around him by acting weird, and by, he opened up a program for teens at risk, which was a magnet never for the kids that he was able to molest. One thing I found very frightening, I usually don't say this in public, but my resistance is down, so I'll share with you something. They wrote there that Paterno was so distracted by football, he was so engaged in football, that he didn't want to deal with anything else in the school. All he wanted to talk about was football. And the parents, his Paterno's kids, said that he used to draw on the dining room table. He would draw football plays. Take out the word football and put in learning for Rosh Hashiva. And he said, Yomim v'layla, I'll say it differently. He was Isaac Yomim v'layla in football. And he didn't want to make bittul football. So when Sandusky came and said, I'll take this stuff off your desk and I'll deal with a lot of the stuff that school has to go on, Paterno was very happy to sign it off to him, because all he wanted to do was steig in football. And when you think about it in that context, look at some of the high-profile school stuff with a different eye. Not all cases, but a lot of them, get into that. So let's talk about. So read there. You'll read about the grooming process. He describes a football coach named Clay, who came up with this idea of how to figure out which kids he could start with and which he couldn't. And it was brilliant and evil. You cannot think like a sex offender. Period, exclamation point. Normal people can't think like this. They're different than you and I. You don't see it on the outside, but their heads are very, very differently wired. That's why they need to be on a registry, that's why whatever. This guy, Yonah Weinberg, who's suing me for slander, I love that. He said, I ruined his reputation. I asked the judge. I said, okay. I said he didn't pay his parking tickets. What's the guy molested little boys. So I got up and I said, how do you ruin his reputation? What's going to be lower than that? Whatever. So this character, first of all, what he did was so stupid. He went and sued me. So I made him the most famous pedophile certainly in the Jewish world.
Sure.
So what are you, crazy? I have a big fat mouth. What are you starting with me for? Start with somebody else. I mean, it's fine. I'm not stepping down, but it just makes no sense. That's how bullies think. You say, this makes no sense. Why is he doing this? Because they don't think with sense. He wants to bully me. He can't get his head around the fact that he can't beat me, that he can't bully me. So Monday night, Tuesday, I did it last my trip. Tuesday night, I did a talk in Har Nof where he lived. He wanted to stop me from doing the talk, so he filed for an order of protection against me. Like that, huh? So he asked the judge for a 500-meter order of protection. I asked the judge if she thinks I'm a sniper in the Israeli army, I'm going to take him out. In America, the biggest Retzayach gets 50 feet, whatever. He wanted to stop me from going. So I came back. I was there. I arrived on the afternoon. I went to the Kotel for Mincha Ma'ariv. I'm walking up the steps, and somebody walking on the way down says, "Hey, Yankee, how you doing?" So, I travel. I meet people, lovely people, but I don't remember their names. So I said, "Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you." He said, "Mazel bracha." Oh, your tefillah should be answered. And he says, "See you tomorrow." It was Weinberg. He said it like, "See you tomorrow." Like, we're going to Cannes. We're going to make a mashpaj or whatever you call it. So I said, I went like this. I reverted to my high school days, I went like this, and I walked away from him. He said, "You're not taking this personally, are you?" Like, you can't make this up, Shimmy, right? And the next day in court, I wanted to, if you really want some entertainment, the Yakov Horowitz, Yonah Weinberg, Yediot. The Yediot was waiting outside. They were waiting outside. I got a Yediot reporter to cover it. And you should see this guy smile. You should see his smile. He's charming like crazy. I wanted him to come out there snarling. So I wanted the reporter to see him not with the mask on. So I printed 3 copies of the sex offender registry. I gave it to my lawyer. I said, as soon as we cross, the first words out of your mouth, ask him, "Did you ever harm children? Are you a sex offender?" So he says, "What do you mean?" He's going to say yes. I said, "I guarantee you," he says no. And then the case is over. So the judge says, my lawyer says, "Mr. Weinberg, did you ever harm children?" "No." "Are you a sex offender?" "No." So he hands out the copies. He says, "Are you a sex offender?" "No." And he started to get unhinged. And then when she threw out the case, I was sitting opposite him. I mouthed to him, "You can't bully me. I'm not afraid of you. You can't bully me. How does it feel to have somebody you can't bully? You can't bully me. I'm not afraid of you." He started screaming at the judge. If you look at I'll send it to you. You look at the clip, the first 10 seconds, he's mamish snarling. And then you look lower in the feed, you have this beautiful smile. Like he realized halfway through, like, this is not a good idea. Like, you can't think like these guys. You can't make assumptions for child safety based on how these guys think. They don't think like you and I. They're different. They're sick. So just like it's self-destructive, you say, so somebody molested someone, we caught him, he went to jail, and now he's never going to do it again. That was the thinking. That's why people moved Rabbeim from city to city. They weren't evil people. They didn't understand it. They thought it was a sin. When a reporter asked me, why don't the rabbis care about the kids? I told her, I said, a 7th grader came to my yeshiva today. He was kicked out of 4 schools. Why should I take him in? I said, the parents are begging me to give him a 5th chance. Why should I take him in? It's not good for my school. It's not good for anybody. But I went in this profession because I love children and I want to help them out. I want to give them a chance. So why wouldn't I give Weinberg a chance? That was the old thinking that got people in trouble. Let's move on. So the message to your children is, if you're feeling uncomfortable, get out. And the reason that this is important is because there's a continuum from where the guys start to where they actually, Rahman al-Islam, molest the kids. And over that time, they gradually break down the barriers. But it's physically, by touching them, rubbing their back, and seeing if the children react. Again, if your children react appropriately and they look like they're eating with their hands or they give them a look, it's usually over then. If they don't, now, I've heard this from so many victims. What happens is they feel uncomfortable way before any molestation. That is, if this is the continuum, okay, saying hello and molesting a child, so somewhere along the line, the kid starts feeling uncomfortable. We all had this feeling, people staring at you or looking at you, or you just, you have this feeling where kids feel like that too. Weberman's victim, he started molesting her when she was 12. He had business dealings with her father. She told me during the trial that she felt uncomfortable around him when he was 9 already. So I said, how did you know? He said, I don't know, he just looked at me. She couldn't describe it. She didn't have the words to describe it. He was leering at her probably, whatever he was. So what you want to teach your children is don't wait till the end, till he's very close to molesting you to run out. Get out whenever you have that feeling. That's the real message. No one has the right to make you feel uncomfortable. Is you're telling your children, trust your instincts and I'm going to back you for it. I will back you if you come to me, even if it makes no sense. See, because the problem is, almost always when you have a situation like this, and there's a child is coming somewhere in the grooming process and saying they felt uncomfortable, most of the times they don't have the language to describe it. And even if they do, you say, big deal. I didn't like so-and-so, he touched me on my back. Where did he touch you? Your backside? No, it's only... So his hand, you know. They don't have the language to say he had his hand there too long. Or I didn't like the way he was crowding me. They don't have the language. Want to hear a cute one? I did this talk the first time to Rabbanim about 11 years ago at an Agudas Yisrael convention. I had 70 Agudah Rabbanim in a room, and 5 members of the Moetzes Gedalei Torah. I had Rabbi Shmuel Kamenetsky there, and Rabbi Rebbe, Rabbi Aaron Feldman, and whatever. It was like the whole day is, I was presenting, it was a while ago, I was younger, and I was really uncomfortable. So I finally got to this part, and I was trying to explain the grooming, that the guy goes like this, and he goes like, so I started fudging. I said, epis, if the guy's mekarev to the, his gems, and he gets in the same gather as the Lamaisa, Kenzain, and Shtigl. I don't know what I said, but it didn't make sense, I promise you. The guy gets in the epis, he's not richuk enough. Whatever. I promise you, I don't know what I said, but it wasn't not like I'm talking now. So, no messing around. One of the Rabbanim, 70 years old, tremendous Talmud Chacham, some of you know his name. He got up just like this. He says, Rabbi Yakov, could you please speak plain English? Just like that. I kid you not. He said, this is Pikuach Nefesh. We're all adults here. Tell us what you're saying. Now, that was really helpful. That made me comfortable. So now, not only do I have to talk about this stuff, now everybody, whoever fell asleep woke up. So now they're all looking at me and saying, okay, let me hear the good stuff, right? So I said, oh my God. So I do what I do at these times, and I say, do me a solid, God, fast, come up with an idea. So I was trying to think of how to talk about encroaching on space without talking about encroaching on space. So I came up with the idea of spacing. It just came really on the spot. So I said, so I told all of them, and I'm going to do it with you. How close is it appropriate? How much of a distance should there be between 2 people who are attending a class? What's the answer? There's a lot of people, right? Look how close. Many of you are literally, I'm sorry? You need a credit to swipe it, right? You're sitting on perfectly normal. There's a limited number of chairs, and it's perfectly normal that you're sitting like this. Nobody bats an eyelash. Now imagine if there were 3 people in the room. Same number of chairs. One person sits down here, one person sits down here, and the third person sits down right next to you. Now, it's the same distance that you have now, but the context is different. You say, oh my God, I gotta go, see you later, right? You start feeling very, I'm sorry? Like in the same thing in a movie theater, right? On a subway train. I gave an example of a subway car. I said in a New York subway car, you go into a subway car, you take half a car length away from somebody else. If the guy comes and sits right next to you, you got a problem. So what I did is, Shim, you want to be a good sport? I asked the Rav. Shimmy, I'm not going to encroach on your space, I promise. So here's what I did. I had the Rav sit down. I said, Rav, could you please sit down? So here's the question. Let's say this was the example. There's a subway car that goes from here to here. Okay, this is the size. The width is, let's say, from here to this, like the size of the subway car. Okay, Shimmy? If you're sitting there and you're the only one in the car, where should I be sitting? Where would you think was an appropriate space? Why don't you get up and put the chair down? Leave your chair for a minute. Put this chair down where you think I should be sitting if I'm the second guy in the car. Go ahead.
Does it go to?
No, it goes to the end. To the light switch. To the, the outlet. Right. On the other side. I like that. Good one. Now, what?
Can I go back?
No, we're not done. Sit down. Now, yes, you're getting worried. Now, here's what I'm going to do. And I did it there in front of all the Rosh Yeshivas. They were cracking up, actually. They loved it. So, here's what I'm going to do, Shani. I'm going to start moving my chair a little at a time. And imagine if it wouldn't be here, if I would sit over here. When you start getting a little bugged out, you raise one hand. When you're really ready to bolt, which it looks like now already.
I go to Muncies. I've never been on a subway.
Okay, in a sushi restaurant. Okay, there's a sushi restaurant this size, we're the only one. So when you start getting a little uncomfortable, I want one hand up when you're really bugged out too, okay? So imagine I said,
I keep moving over?
no, and that's it. Imagine that if instead of sitting down where you told me to, how about if I sat down here? Would this make you even a little bit uncomfortable? Okay, so how about if I sat down here? How about here?
The whole car's empty?
The whole car's empty.
I'd be a little uncomfortable.
Pick up a hand. Okay. Here, two hands is when you want to run.
That's enough.
Enough. I've done this hundreds of times all around the world, from super Hasidim to people who are non-religious. That second hand goes up when I can touch him. Almost every single time. When I can touch him, that's when the second hand goes up. Because now, what? What do you say? What?
I feel nauseous.
We're good friends.
And he knows you.
Thank you. That's why I'm scared. Thank you. So now, here's the point. And this really encapsulates, I'm going to kind of wrap things up because it's probably a headline in tomorrow's paper saying Rabbi collapses on, in Neve the meal is probably not a good idea. But what I'm going to, this is what you need to know to take home, folks, okay? In the grooming process, the equivalent of this takes place in 20 different ways. It could be phone calls or texts, texting someone 5 o'clock, texting them 7 o'clock, texting them 9 o'clock. It could be, you can't even think of all the applicable ways that this happens. What are the things that they're talking about? So, you know, a Rebbe or an older boy could be talking to a kid, and he'll ask him, you know, they'll first start talking about sports, and then he'll ask him, you know, something a little more personal. Sooner or later, he'll get to a subject and talk about masturbation, let's say, which is like totally off the charts. So they don't do this right away. It's a process. Now, here's the point. The most important point is, Shimi's first hand went up about here, okay? Second hand went up at arm's distance, okay? Here's when they need to get out. Not here. Because once they're there, they have to disengage. What?
Then it's too late.
It's almost too late. If I get up here, if Shimi gets up when I'm here, he doesn't even talk to me. He just walks away. He doesn't feel like he needs to explain himself to me. But if I'm sitting here, you're going to say something like, oh, I really got to go. You have to excuse yourself because I'm in your space already, and it's way too close. So think of this, every single part of it. Again, people get to this and realize it. There was a rabbi type who was behaving very inappropriately with young ladies. And Baruch Hashem, the rabbis in this community were extremely responsible and really took care of it well. So they asked me to meet with the young lady, which I generally don't do. I'm not because of religion, but I'm really careful about boundaries. But both her parents were in the room on the other side. I really made an exception. And I asked her about, you know, how's it going? How do you like the shiurim? Do you go to any classes? She said, yeah, we go to so-and-so's class at night. It's very good. And does he give you guidance? Yeah, he texts me. Wow, it's so nice, so devoted. Yeah. He texts you like all day? No, not even that, during the night. So I said, how late is he texting you? Sometimes 2, 3 in the morning. And she said, my mother gets all worked up about it. The parents were on the other side, but they couldn't hear. My mother gets all worked up about it. And what's wrong with it? Big deal. You're not touching me. He's so appropriate with me, you know what? I was thinking to myself, how do I get this across to her that this is like totally not right? So I said, okay, you're 19 years old. Fast forward 5 years. You're 24, you're married with a baby. You go down in the middle of the night to make a bottle for your baby, and your husband's texting a 19-year-old girl. How are you feeling, ma'am? She said, I'd kill him. I said, case closed. And like, I saw it, like it just got into her head. And you know, she broke it up eventually with him, and we ran him out of town. And we did some stuff too, but whatever. But not violence, but we made sure that he wouldn't get into a situation like that again. My point is, this girl got sucked in, and I asked her about it because I was curious about the grooming thing. I said, you know, when did this start? It's just like this. They were texting in the only during the day, and then he started texting her at night, and then she had crisis, and he said, no, you know what? If it's a real crisis, you can make a once a year exception and text me during the middle of the night. I'll get when I get back, and then the topics were wildly, crazily inappropriate, and the girl didn't realize that she was just getting dragged along. So the ultimate message, the last message is to teach your children to trust their instincts. That's really what you're saying. And if they come to you and they don't have the language to express this, the guy sat down next to me. He's talking to me about private things. He's doing blah, 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 whatever it is. You say, get out. A corollary to that story, our baby, our youngest, is Hashem's help getting married next month. We're the empty nesting and come to Neve Daniel for a month.
Or more.
Or more. And she...
It's a house we can sell you.
Yeah. Is it a new development? Cash? Good line. So she... Am I financially knowledgeable? Okay. She came back from seminary for a year in Israel. She went to work for someone in an office, a rabbi-type person, doing secretarial work. The very first day, she called me up at 11 o'clock. She says, Tati, I just don't feel comfortable here. So I said, what happened? Did he make a pass at you? Did he stare at you? She says, no, he didn't really. He's been behaving properly, but I just have a bad feeling. I don't feel right. I said, pick yourself up, get out, don't say goodbye to him, get in the car, I'll call him when you get home. And we subsequently, this guy was a bad actor, and my daughter picked it up. All right, she grew up in my house. Oh, no, I'm serious, really. So she grew up, hearing a lot of things that you don't hear in the average home. So in fairness, but I'm telling you, there were 44 graduates in Breuer's High School in Brooklyn, in Monsey. I'm telling you, every one of those girls would kick a guy down the steps if he came, and I'll tell you, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you the other story. Do a Google search for B'nai Brak bride rape. There was a guy arrested in 2009 for raping collars in B'nai Brak. And what he did is he went to the door and he would say that he's a shliach. He waited for a girl to get engaged. He would case the house till the girl was home alone. And he would knock on the door and say he's a shliach from Rav Ozler's Bezdin, the blah, blah, blah. And he was raping them. So thank God he's in jail for a long time. But here's the point. I always say, any one of my daughter's graduating classmates would have kicked this guy down the steps. I believe that any one of your daughters would do the same. If somebody came and said, hi, I'm a shliach from a Rabbi Riskin to teach you halachas, I said, why are you crazy? Get out of here. But it was the naivete. The parents wanted to shelter her, and there was not her, many of the girls there. This guy had the gig going on for years. So overly sheltering your children and not getting it, so you really, is dangerous. You want to teach your children to get it. That's really what it's about. You want to teach your children to get it and empower them to trust their instincts. You want your daughter who's in an office with somebody looking, whatever, getting bugged out, to have the self-confidence to trust her instincts herself. She came home, I promise you, she wasn't sure. And she said 5 times, Tati, he didn't do anything wrong. It's not like, I have no tightness to him. He didn't do, don't go. She said, you can imagine I came home, choo-choo, I was ready to do a Weinberg on him, So my Irish was up, my Irish and Italian and whatever else, I was going to kill the guy. And she said, stop it, Tati, I don't even know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, he didn't say anything, he didn't do anything or something. She really wasn't sure, but she was comfortable enough to call with a question. Quick question, yes?
I just wanted to comment.
Sure.
That in order to teach our children to trust their instincts, we also have to give them a certain amount of freedom. And if we don't, if we hold too much and too closely, then we prevent them from being able to develop those.
That's a very good point.
And I just wanted to...
I'm amplifying what you said, but go, please.
And I think here, in particular, there's certain things that our children do have, and I don't think that we should come at this in the opposite direction. There's some comments before about Trump being related. I think those are wonderful things that we should encourage our children to continue to do, and that's a wonderful part of our culture. And I think it's just important to give our kids rules and guidelines for how to do it and the way to do it safely, but not to displace.
Right, and put in safety measures that they should do with...
And I just want to I just, like,
Go for it, please, 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 no rules. I like when somebody else talks, I'm resting, go.
what happened was, I went to meet my husband, who teaches in Illinois, and this was the other night, and as I'm getting closer to the school, the school building, there's a lock on the door, and the girls are going into the building, and then I don't know, like, accent or anything, and I pull out the girls in like perfect good English. Oh, girls, hold the door, please. And one of the girls who was clearly taught to be very, very careful with strangers looked at me and went, oh, slammed the door shut. Like, crazy. And this was an example of somebody who did overly kind and not even overly kind and not totally smart at all. Like,
So, you don't know the context, you don't know what happened there last week. I don't know, you don't know what they were spoken to about. So I'm serious, I'm not joking. I went to speak in Yeshiva Flatbush. I went to speak, I commended the principal and I called 2 of his board members because they didn't let me in the building. I went to speak during the day. They didn't let me in the building because they weren't noted, and I didn't bring my ID, I locked it in the car. So I said, I'm Yakov Horowitz. You see this picture? Hi, this is the flyer. I'm speaking today. That's very nice. That's beautiful. Have a seat, please. He wouldn't let me go. And when he finally, the principal said, send him in, the guy was following me. And I called up the board members. I said, God bless you. That's what you need to do. So I don't know what the context is. I don't know what the context is. But it's true that we have to acclimate our children to make choices and be there to support them. Thank you very, very much, folks. What? I'm sorry? Better you get stuck inside. Right, so there's going to be an overreaction. That's what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everyone. That's not